Okay, so this turret looks different than the B-17 turret. Is it any different that you know of?
It is very different. I don't think the B-17 ever had a turret like that.
No, I don't think so.
The B-24s, the D models, only had 2 guns, and later they put a turret that would go full range this way and go about 220 degrees either side. So this is lots more effective.
It looks like it had a terrific side-to-side motion to the traverse.
It was really good to see anything from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and pretty low. So he covered a lot of ground for looking for fighters, flak, whatever.
Now you were a navigator. Did the bombardier operate that turret, or who was responsible?
No, it was a nose gunner. That was his position. Yeah, he was there all the time.
Okay. And then on the bottom here, that's your Norden bomb sight?
The navigator, the bombardier, made sure all the bombs, when you took off, he pulled a little pin and the propellers started turning when you got in the air and armed the bombs. So he made sure they were all armed and all laying properly. And then he would come back up to the flight deck, and if there's any gunner that had a problem, he'd help them with it. And they'd all, when we got out over the North Sea, they'd all try out their guns. And if any had trouble, he'd go and help them. But otherwise, he sat on the flight deck till we got to the target, or to the IP, which was a point where you would turn to get on the heading for the target. And about 15-20 minutes before we got on the bomb run, he'd come down, get on the bomb sight, tune it in, and then when we were at the right distance, he'd tell the pilot, Bombardier to pilot, I got the plane. The pilot says, it's yours. And then he would fly it with his knob there and keep it on that bomb run. So we set perfectly still and away on one flight and didn't move up or down or yaw either way until we dropped the bombs. So he would line it up perfectly, get the target at his bomb site, and it would do it automatically.
Sorry, that's the P-51 taking off. That's a distinctive sound.
It's a good sound. They were our Squadron friendly fighters.
Yeah.
Nice to see them later. So anyhow, he would turn that knob and keep the crosshairs both on the flight line and on the target. When he got to the target, those crosshairs would cross and automatically release the bomb line.
Yeah. Now, where was your position? I've not been in a B-24.
Now, when he was there over the bomb site, I was facing back and I had a desk that could pull down with instruments all the way across the fuselage. And that desk pulled down, and I had to straddle him. His back end was right here, so it was that tight. It was that tight setting for us.
Okay, we'll take a short break here. So your position in the aircraft would have been right back here.
It would have been, if you look out these side windows and through the Astrodome on top to shoot with the sextant. But on mine, see how the pilot's edge is bulged out like that?
Yeah.
This was the same way, so I could stick my head out in the bubble and look straight down and almost straight up. I had 180-degree vision.
Wow, you had a great view then.
And that was put there instead of that flat window.
Could you see where the bombs hit then? Or were you busy with the navigation?
I could see I had what they call a drift meter, and it was a telescope that was permanently mounted. And when we got over the target, we had a wide enough lens that you could see the target and see where the bombs, see where the first ones hit.
Yeah.
And they had a smoke tracer from the time they left the airplane till they got all the way to the target, so you could track the smoke and see where it was at any particular time and get a good range of that.
Yeah. I know I've seen some of those strike target photos, and you could actually trace the smoke and see the bomb in the air. With the smoke trail was pretty effective.
And on our first mission, we flew bucket leads, so there's an echelon of 3 here, an echelon of 3 here, and just the bucket lead, and they had the camera. So we were dumb and immediately was behind the lead plane. When the lead plane dropped his bombs, he dropped the smoke bomb so that there's a tracer. Would you believe that we flew, the bombs were gone, but that smoke trail was still there? Would you believe that we flew right into that smoke trail? It went across the cockpit. You couldn't see anything. There's no windshield wipers. There's no nothing. And there isn't even a squirter that will squirt back. So we were flying on instruments for a long time.
Well, that's quite a smoke trail.
It is. So you don't fly under it, you fly out to the side a little bit.
Yeah. So the engines here, I guess if we're going around this in an order, the front, now this is different from the B-17 with the tail, I mean the wheel.
Yes, very much.
So you have a triangular...
This has a nose wheel.
Yeah. And it's steerable?
No, it is not.
Oh, so you steered with the engines and the brakes? Or the...
Yes.
Okay.
You know, I'm not sure that isn't on a swivel so that if it needs to turn, it can.
Yeah.
I think it can.
Yeah.
You don't drive it, it just follows. You put the left brake on and it'll turn and follow the circle.
Yeah. Did they turn off the inside two engines when they were on the ground in order to taxi and turn?
Taxied with number 1 and 4, the outside engines on, the outboard engines on. Yeah.
Well, this is in really good shape, this airplane. It looks like the engines are repainted and almost brand new looking.
Yeah, it's been redetailed.
Yeah. Now, this is called Witchcraft. What was the name of your airplane? Did it have a name, or did you have different airplanes?
It was called the Wazzle Dazzle.
Okay. What was the story behind that?
When the crew met for the first time, it was in Lemoore, California. We met at a restaurant, and the co-pilot had his wife there, and he was the only one apparently that was married. So she was sitting with him, and he introduced her to everyone, and she said, "I'm glad to meet you guys." And she said, "You know, I heard a story maybe that you might be interested in." Now, she's a beautiful brunette with brown eyes so deep you could swim in them. Just a beautiful gal. She went to Loyola University, and she said, out in the Pacific, there's 1,000 islands, and on one of those islands is a male stork and a female stork on each of the 1,000. And every morning, that male stork gets up and he wazzle dazzle, and he flies to every island in that day, all the way around. And at night, he's a little bit tired and he's ready to go to his own island, so he goes wazzle dazzle, and he crashes on his island. Of course, that's bird language, and in English, guess what that means? Oh boy, I love that stuff. That's terrible.
That's a great story.
So our plane was wazzle dazzle with the stork carrying the bomb.
Well, that's a great name for a plane.
But can you imagine how many people said, "Oh, they'd see the nose art, what does wazzle dazzle mean?"
Unless you know the story, it wouldn't make much sense.
All of the crew members knew it.
Now, did you paint missions and stuff with the bombs like this one?
We did. I only flew 2 Squadron missions, and all the rest of ours, I flew 8, and that was at the end of the war. And all the others were single plane missions, so they didn't really give us, we didn't paint anything on there. 2 or 3 of them were secret missions, intelligence missions, and we weren't to talk about it, to say anything we did, when we went, or where.
Yeah.
It was zip, you know. So.
You didn't paint any of those on the side of your airplane.
They didn't allow it.
Now, did you do some intelligence work too, besides
I was Squadron intelligence officer, and I met with the intelligence officer at the base once a week. And basically, he told us what was going on intelligence-wise, and that the rest of the base didn't know about. But the English would fly them over about every 3rd night, and they'd drop him wherever he said, and he'd parachute in the dark. And he had a chain of people that he knew, and so he'd get a land near a bomber crew and go to this person in their house that was friendly and find the flyers, bring them back and get them in little boats and transport them, finally get them back to the coast and get them on airplanes would land, pick them up and bring them back to England maybe within 2 days.
Wow.
And then he'd rest a day, and that day he would meet with us and tell what was going on. So it was a really interesting job, and because I was at plane fly on 2 or 3 missions that had to do with the intelligence.
Yeah.
They were long missions. One of them was the worst one because it was weather and they knew we were flying into a front. That was the worst.
Now they knew, meaning our people or the Germans, or?
Say again?
When you say that they knew, was that the Germans knew you were flying into the front, or the?
Our own CO and the intelligence officer.
Yeah.
We had to get this message, and we had to fly 3 hours and deliver a message, and then pick up a coded message. And if we delivered our message and picked up the coded, that meant that he had received it, and we'd do 180 and go back home.
Wow, huh? Now, what altitude would you fly an intelligence mission on? Was that high or low, or?
High.
Okay, so it would be like 25,000 or something?
25 to 30.
Yeah.
And the reason we flew at 30, or 25 or 30, is the plane got better mileage up there, less drag.
Yeah.
And we had superchargers, so we got better gas mileage, and it was just more comfortable out of the weather generally. But that night we couldn't get over it, and the thunderstorms, we flew right through them.
Now, as I understand it, the wing is kind of special on this plane compared to the 17. It's a different design, this Davis wing.
Davis wing. Davis created this wing, and he didn't create it for a bomber. He created it for a commercial airplane, but they decided, Consolidated says that'll work on this aircraft and it will lift it. And it takes a little bit more speed, but it'll lift it. So they put that Davis wing on this plane and took it from 160 maybe to 65 for the B-17 to 200 with the B-24. And it gave it a longer range, and it would fly higher and faster.
Well, we happen to have 2 planes right next to each other here, so this is less square footage than the other one.
Yes, it is. Much less.
Okay.
And therefore, much less drag, but normally it would be that much less lift as well. But Davis did an incredible job.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that's immediately something you notice is, besides the triangle landing gear, is the way the landing gear goes up into the wing here. It looks like it, it goes up sideways rather than, yeah. Those are enormous tires. We was watching them trying to change it there earlier.
They go from 0 miles per hour to touching down on the runway at probably 115, 120 miles an hour, and in a split second they're doing 120 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they just peel rubber for 50 to 75 feet.
Yeah.
So you can only do so many landings on there.
Yeah.
Very much appreciated. I'd like to draw your attention.
But it requires less space, and it doesn't destroy the airflow at all. A lot of them fold up into the wing and leaves half the tire exposed. But here, they fold up so they completely fold into the airflow of the plane.
Yeah. Do you know if you ever had to sort of do a wheels up landing on this thing? Did they put the front wheel down, or did they just come in on its belly, or?
Come in on its belly.
Yeah. You didn't have to do anything like that, I hope.
We did not, but we came in, and the nose wheel wouldn't show the light that it was locked. So we pulled it up and dropped it down again, and the same thing. And the engineer went down and cranked it to get it down further, and he couldn't. It was there, but it didn't show that it was locked. And we landed, had a good landing, and as he put the brakes on hard, it crumpled.
Oh.
And the nose went down, and we grounded off to about here, I suppose.
Wow. Now, where would you be when you're on takeoffs and landings?
On the flight deck with the pilots and engineers.
Were other people up there too? I mean, where were the gunners usually when they took off?
The tail gunner was in his turret,
Grandpa, this is
and the
a
nose
windshield
gunner
right
was
here.
in his turret.
Oh,
and
okay.
the dorsal gunner was in his, and the ball turret gunner was back in the waist, and the left gunner is the engineer, and he was up on the cockpit helping the pilot on takeoff, and the radio operator was in the radio operator's desk, and he managed the right waist gun under attack.
Okay. Huh. Is the bomb bay different on a B-24?
Much different. They roll up the side and hug the side very well so that it doesn't disrupt the airflow.
Okay.
It gives lots of room for the bombs to drop away.
So this, maybe we could walk over there and you could kind of explain this. So this rolled up?
It rolls up like a curtain. It hugs the fuselage all the way.
Okay.
As you can see, it ends here, so the bombs drop straight down, and you don't have to worry about hitting them or anything. Otherwise, you got a door out here, Bombay doors out in the street.
So that was quite a improved design.
Really improved.
No air drag, plus it was more efficient in the drop.
It was, and it opened a wider door.
Wow, that's interesting. I did not know that. And
The
then,
trouble when you landed on the sea, when you ditched, you'd have these closed, but they're kind of flexible, and the wave would knock them in. And
So-
then hit this bulkhead, and the plane would buckle and sink. So it wasn't a good ditcher. We didn't have much time.
now when you went over the English Channel, did you say to me one time you had PBYs or PBMs that were out there picking up people?
Kevin, it was amazing. You come back from a mission and you just thank the Lord for taking care of you and your teammates on the mission. And you're maybe at 12,000 feet and you see the English Channel and you've got enough altitude that even if one engine had quit, you could still make England, the White Cliffs of Dover on the other side. And the White Cliffs of Dover were like rainbows to us. We were home when we could see that.
Yeah.
And the minute that we get near that English Channel, there'd be a PB-2Y, you could see it in the air.
Yeah.
I don't know, there was two of them I guess, and I don't know how they did that, but they were angels. We loved those people and just thanked them for the rest of our lives, because when we land, and that's a choppy channel, and probably 6-foot seas, we land, somebody would land in that, and there'd be a PB-2Y right beside him, and that's a low-powered airplane, but it'd land in those seas and pick those guys up right away.
Yeah.
They were just, it was incredible.
You were really glad to see those guys, especially after going through all you had to go through on the raid.
Another thing on returning home, early in the war, a lot of planes were shot down and the Germans rebuilt them, and they would fly them back to England full of bombs.
Oh.
So how could you tell if a German is flying in an American? So they decided immediately they'd tell all the women who manned the shore batteries, both spotlights and guns, we'd have to do some sort of a signal to let them know that we were friendly. And it was some sort of a term. And boy, you better memorize that term. In briefing, you were told what it was. So when you came back, you know, make a 90 degrees to the left, 360 to the right, a 90 degree left and a 90 degree right, and then you could enter.
Otherwise, they thought you were the enemy.
And the first thing they'd do is put the spotlights on you And when those spotlights hit that airplane, the whole plane inside became luminous, like I imagine Jesus looked when he was transfigured. His clothes glistened. Well, everything in that plane glistened white. The spotlight was on. You couldn't see instruments, you couldn't see anything. And so we were pretty helpless when that was on there. And then they had that and they
That must have been a powerful searchlight.
Oh, it was.
Now this is the supercharger here?
That's the supercharger. And that's what allowed it to get from 27, 28,000. That was one of the things they improved that.
Yeah.
And they also made toothpick props. Toothpick style. They extended them to about this length and brought this down wide and then narrow to a point down here, and we call them toothpicks. But if you can imagine this much more surface, this distance from the center was all kinds of power for this airplane.
Yeah.
It's a square of the distance.
So this is a Hamilton standard, but it wouldn't have been the length of the one that you had.
It was not.
Okay.
I don't know who made those.
Yeah.
But that was near the end of the war before they put those on. We couldn't fly at 30,000. And the reason we wanted to fly at 30,000 is the Germans with their ACAC and radar that was excellent from 0 to 28,000. They could pinpoint you and set the fuse in the ACAC gun to go off at that altitude, and they could just blast you. But if you were at 30, they didn't know where you were, so when we'd get flak, they'd come up about 28,000, go off, go at our altitude, and on up, and then come back down. So we got half the flak that we normally would, so the 30,000 made it a lot safer for us.
Wow. Well, there's all these measures and countermeasures, all of the technology. It's interesting. Well, we'll head back here. I guess the next thing would be the side or waist gun. Did they call it, is that what they would refer to it?
The waist gun.
Okay. And that was a single 50 caliber Browning M2 machine gun?
It was a single 50 caliber. I'm not sure about the nomenclature.
Okay.
But the engineer who set up just below the flight deck, or just off the flight deck, come back here and man this one.
Oh. So your flight engineer was actually manning the waist gun?
During attack, yes.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. And then is this like a wind deflection? Was there a window or plexiglass, or was it open, or on the
sliding door?
Oh, okay.
So it was sliding plexiglass.
So they didn't have to stand in the wind at minus 50 or whatever.
They did not, and most of the early ones had no deflector there at all. So they got the blast.
Yeah.
And the blast would hit the gun, and it was hard to hold in 200-mile-an-hour wind.
Oh, yeah. I never thought of that. Your wind resistance on the barrel would maybe throw off the accuracy of the gunner.
It was much harder for them to be accurate.
Yeah. Now, which model were you flying?
B-24J.
J, okay. And that's distinctive. It's got the sliding glass and it's got the wind. Are there other features of the J?
It has a turret up front, and it has a bubble out on each side for the Navigator and a bubble out the window for the pilot.
Yeah.
And there were other things too that I can't remember. I didn't even know all the difference, but it was the latest model.
So that was the last model, at least near the end of the war.
It was, and it was they left that all aluminum.
Oh, okay. So there was no olive drab painting
No,
on it.
There wasn't.
What was the insignia on the tail for your bomb group? Was it?
On the tail, there was a diagonal yellow strip, and in the center of that strip was a D.
Okay.
And that was our squadron mascot was a Grabbit the Rabbit.
Oh, what?
Grabbit the Rabbit. There was a rabbit holding the bomb, and Rabbit the rabbit.
So Yellow Stripe D was the, if I'm looking at pictures, then I know it's your bomb group.
Yes.
Okay. And
448.
you were in the 2nd Division, 8th Air Force, England. And what was your base at? Where was your base?
Seething, a little town, S-E-E-T-H-I-N-G, Seething.
Okay.
It's about 12 miles south and east of Norwich, and 110 miles north and a little bit east of London.
Okay. And then you said you were there at the tail end, sort of the last months. What was your period of time you were in England?
About 4 months.
Okay. So, like, what month would you start? Like February or something?
February or early March.
And did you get out pretty quick once the war ended, or were you over there for a while?
We flew some tours after the war was over of high-ranking American generals, majors.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. So we flew quite a few of those. And we came home, I think, maybe June 3rd. We flew home June 3rd.
Well, that was pretty quick then. The war in the Pacific was still going.
Oh, yes, it was. Yes, it was. So we came home, and that flight home was incredible. If you can imagine leaving Valley, Wales on the Navigator's flight, you can imagine leaving Valley, Wales at 1 o'clock in the morning and flying all the rest of the night 1,350 miles away to a little fly speck in the Atlantic called the Azores. And so you had maybe 20 to 30 minutes gas supply addition because the war was over and they weren't having the supply of gas that they normally got when the war was on.
So you couldn't miss that speck out in the ocean.
You had to hit it. And but I incredibly got a chance to take the Transport Command navigation, which was incredible. So helpful. So that was an easy trip that I worked all the way.
Yeah.
And when we got there was an undercast, and you really hoped to be able to see that island.
Yeah.
But I said we'd be there in 2 hours, and I said we're going to be there in 15 minutes. And then when we got there, I said, okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, we're there. Well, we're over a undercast. And when you get directly over an airport, there's a yellow light on the instrument panel that turns on. And I said, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And that yellow light came on.
I'll bet they applauded. You were a heck of a navigator.
I got out, they grabbed me up and put me on their shoulders and run me around that airplane.
I think I would have too.
That was chore.
Yeah. Well, their lives were in your hands at that point. Make sure that you got there.
You didn't think much about that. You just wanted to get your own buns safely home too.
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. Now this has I think they're looking at the Mustang coming in for a landing somewhere.
B-24 Mustang. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There it goes.
They were a friendly fire. High altitude. Beautiful, isn't it?
That's quite an airplane. Now the tail, of course, is very distinctive on one of these compared to the other airplanes. Was there a reason for the dual tail?
Gives you just lots more control. This gives you twice the control.
Oh, okay. Was it any problem for bailing out if you had to go out of the airplane or not?
I had to go out of the air and I and the nose got over very tight opening for the nose gear. And of course, I think he's coming in for a landing. I think went out our side door. These gunners just bailed out here or through the bomb bay. Most of the crew bailed out through the open bomb bay.
Yeah.
They just dropped out.
Well, that's an impressive, very distinctive feature of this airplane are those tails.
Where the red is, ours is aluminum where the white is yellow. The end is we had a black B.
Now the tail gunner must have had a pretty good view. Looking at this tail turret is quite a bit different from the one on the B-17.
He had full view, full range. He covered the rear perfectly well.
Was the tail gunner supposed to watch where the bombs hit or anything, or was he just supposed to watch for fighters and keep them off the tail? Did you encounter fighters on your missions, or was it late enough in the war that it was mostly flak?
Touchdown! What a good land!
That was a good land, wasn't it?
Touchdown! There's a touchdown!
Was that a 3-point? I didn't notice. It looked like he was kind of trying to do a 3-point landing there. Did you have these?
When I was flying, they would make us do a tail, what they called a tail drag, so we'd pull the tail down first.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think he did. I think he came in,
Hit the front.
touchdown,
Yeah.
and then pulled the power and let the tail drop.
Yeah. Did you fly P-51s?
No, I flew trainer aircraft.
Yeah, but they wanted you to hit the rear wheel first in the training.
Not all the time, just they wanted you to be able to do it.
Yeah,
So when that was done, you had to do that each time.
yeah, yeah. Oh, wow.
Plus everybody back there.
So this is quite different in layout from a B-17.
Ever.
And this is your oxygen system.
Yeah, that's
And that would
supplying
go-
the whole system.
And this would be your electrical suit, huh?
Yes.
What is the green? Is that a movable?
Walk around.
Walk around?
That's a walk around tank.
Okay. And the yellow, is that
That
oxygen?
holds the oxygen for the whole crew.
This is so different. It's well laid out.
It is. So it's covered here for people to walk through.
What is this thing, do you think?
Yeah.
This metal.
Isn't that crazy?
Maybe that's the feed for the ammunition for the tail gun or something.
Well, I don't think so, but I don't really know.
Huh. So were there two gunners, waist gunners?
They had a double purpose. The starboard waist gunner was the radio operator.
Oh, okay.
And one under attack, he'd come back and man this gun.
Sure.
And the flight engineer and the port.
Yeah.
So they would go back and do this.
So,
This is their ammunition box.
yeah. Were they wood or leather? It looks like it's almost covered with leather there. Huh.
It's metal.
Now what is this thing? It looks like there's a. Was this for? Oh, this is for raising and lowering the ball turret, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
So you could drop the ball if you had to lighten up the airplane?
No.
Oh, really? Okay.
What did you say?
Could you drop the ball if you had to lighten the airplane in an emergency?
Not that I know of.
Oh,
You
okay.
just pull it up, get it out of the airstream.
Oh, okay. So this was while you're flying or whatever, you could raise and lower the ball.
Yes.
Okay. That's interesting, huh? Did you guys want to go ahead of us, or are you
Oh, no,
okay?
that's okay.
We might go a little slower because
No
he's
problem.
describing.
We like it.
Boy, is this in beautiful shape. They have all this original equipment.
I have never been back in my aircraft. I've never been back at this bulkhead
Oh yeah. You mean while you're flying it, or
ever.
ever? Oh really? Huh. Well, you were probably busy if you had to keep track of where the plane was.
I haven't been fighters and of black. The early 20s I got along with this a lot better than I do at 90.
Wow, this is pretty tight for me.
Yeah, each side of this bomb bay was loaded with racks of bombs here, either 12 of the 100-pounders or 6 of the 500-pounders.
Okay.
But see how wide these open and how much room they are when they come up the sides?
Oh, okay.
Super. Otherwise they open to about here, stick out into the stream, airstream.
Well, you could pretty well get to any of the lines here, it looks like.
Yes.
And it's got all the control wires going to the rear.
Yeah. Now, this was the radio operator's compartment right here, and that was the engineers, right behind the pilot and co-pilot.
Okay. And then now the Navigator, were you down below?
So we would go down here, and climb alongside that nose wheel well into the nose.
Oh, okay. So you kind of had to crawl past the front wheel.
Yes, it'd still be down, and we, or even when it's up, you know, those doors. Close the door. There wasn't much room.
So the flight engineer on the left, was he controlling the gasoline flow and putting out fires and that sort of thing?
He was busy constantly shifting the tanks and the wings to keep the load level on each wing.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he took one gas tank out, it'd be empty and the other would be full, and we'd have to really trim it.
Yeah, it would destabilize
it. And that trim is really a drag.
Yeah.
So we keep them level with no trim at all, and we got better mileage and nicer flight, easier on the pilot.
Now, was his position also, did he man a gun, did you say?
Under attack, he would jump down here, run back through there, and man that port gun.
Oh, okay. Well, he had a ways to travel to get to the gun.
The radio operator the same way.
Yeah, yeah. And you had a fairly tight space in there, I guess.
Ever tight. I thought we could get through here, but I guess not.
Yeah, it looks like they got it roped off.
Well, I think when you get up here, you can see forward the
Sure.
little space that you have to crawl through.
Yeah.
This is restricted, but that's far more restricted.
Yeah. Oh, well then this is basically as far as you can get on the tour.
Say again?
This is about as far forward they'll let you go.
That's as far as I'll let you go.
Well, maybe I'll take a couple of still pictures here. So how did they hold the bombs on? There was a stanchion. What does the stanchion mean? What are they? Is there a rack here? Oh yeah, here we go. So this is what the bombs were held onto, was with those things that went.
These things here, they hooked in there.
Yeah.
And then when they released, those opened and went back, and down they went. They'd flip way up.
Huh. Boy, you can see all the control wires for the tail. You know, it'd be easy to work on this, I would think.
And you can imagine that the flak had hit one of these and you had no control back there.
Yeah, if it blew out the line.
Or the hydraulic lines, or the oxygen lines.
Yeah.
So you were at risk all the time.
What
And you
an
never knew when you landed. You could look out at the tire and it looks like it's fine, but you never knew if it was flat until you put the weight down on it.
Yeah.
So every landing was,
You're nervous.
it was.
Well, they've done a beautiful job of restoring this airplane. It's just in terrific shape.
They have.
Well, I suppose we should let these folks through. Thanks for your patience. Boy, you're doing better than I am, I think. And you're 90 years old. That's impressive.
We had flat neck tire, maybe even in here, and you didn't see it. But the crew chief, when we got back, would really inspect them, and he saw that one had been nicked, and he just hit it, and the tire blew, and it blew him about 15 feet.
Holy
That
cow!
knocked him out completely, just the blast of air.
So there's a lot of pressure in those.
Incredible amount of pressure.
Plus all the weight of the airplane pushing on the tire. Yeah, I imagine those are, well, I tried to lift one. It felt like it was at least 100 pounds, and that was just the rubber.
More than that, I tried to find out the pressure, but I don't know. But there's a lot of pressure,
Yeah.
at least 100 pounds.
And now, would this be the landing lights up here?
Yes,
And that tire would go all the way up there. Wow, that's an incredible amount of force.
Yet that seems pretty fragile when you think of those 6,300 pounds.
Yeah.
The airplane, let alone the bomb, 8 to 10,000 pounds of bombs.
So now,
Stress on this.
the gross weight was what, about like 65,000 or something, or 63,000? And that would be, was there like a takeoff weight that was normal?
No, that was the ammunition on there, and the bombs would be that much more, and the 2,800 gallons of gas would be that much more.
So you had to calculate all that into your takeoff. Do you remember how fast they had to get up to get off the ground?
I think about 100, maybe 125.
Yeah.
But they would have it to the firewall and pretty much throw the cylinder temperature pressure until you cleared probably 100 feet over the ground.
Yeah. How was the noise levels in the airplane? Was it high or low or?
Incredible. And the aluminum fuselage acted something as a soundboard for these props, particularly 1 and 2.
So it'd start vibrating, and then you were really hard to hear. Now you communicated with some kind of an interphone or a intercom system?
Yeah, you had 3 positions. You had the intercom, and then you had plane to plane, and then you had Navigator to pilot.
Oh.
Navigator to pilot.
Yeah, yeah,
I think that was on the same one.
yeah. Did you use something that went around your throat?
Throat mics.
Throat mics, okay.
They all had throat mics.
And those worked okay, even though it was just picking up the vibration of your larynx?
Yes.
Oh, huh.
They were probably 70% of what the mouth mic would be.
Really? Okay.
You got used to that,
Yeah,
and it was okay.
yeah. Now, when you were through at the end of the war, did you get to take home anything like I don't know, a revolver, or did you have any souvenirs from the war? Or did you have to turn it back?
Except the ones you wore, were piled in a pile at the air base in England, and they poured 100 octane gasoline over it and burned it. And I would have loved to have taken a couple of uniforms off.
Yeah.
So far as the other things were concerned, of course I used the chronometer and the sextant and so on the way home. So all of my instruments I had there, and we landed at Bradley Field, Connecticut, and my watch, everything you had to turn in.
Oh,
You walked in that room, and the sergeant says, "I'll strip you except your uniform." He said, "I'm sorry, but I have to do that." And I said, and I started taking my watch off. He said, "You can't keep that, Lieutenant."
huh.
I said, "Strip you." So we gave it all to him.
Oh, huh.
He said, "You cannot, I won't let you out unless you do that."
Otherwise, you had to stay in the service, huh?
He won't let you out of that room.
Oh. Did they issue you with any kind of hand firearms or anything?
45 automatic.
Oh, okay.
And that 45 caliber is a big bullet.
Yeah.
And when you think of that little automatic, you think, how on earth can you do that? You know, and you hold it, and you actually learn to pull down a little, pull down as you press it.
Uh-huh.
And then put full grip on it. And otherwise, if you just fire it,
It goes jumping up.
way up, and the bullet will go somewhere up there. So to be accurate, so you can get all the ammunition you want. So I take a roll of ammunition out, and I took that 45 and I go out to the range, and I just shot and shot until I got the feel for it.
Yeah.
So I was pretty confident with that 45. And they said anywhere in Austria, northern Germany, when you land, hold up your 45. But in southern Germany, you kill as many Hitler youths as you could, because they take you and they didn't take prisoners.
Oh, wow. Huh.
And you got a slow death, a tortured death.
Huh.
So you would shoot as many as you could, save your last one for yourself.
Yeah. Wow. That's a grim instruction to be told. I guess they learned that over experience of having...
I bet they did. And this intelligence officer told us a lot of it too.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he had the crews that were shot down and what happened to them.
Yeah. Well, let's take a break and get some water.